Good day, you're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Danie, Laurel.
And I'm Delos Santos. Here are today's top stories. Bad debts declined for a 7th straight month in September, bringing the banking industry's non-performing loan ratio to a 25-month low.
Factory output grows at a slower pace as inflation continues to bite.
With underemployment worsening in September, at least one labor group is pushing for an across-the-board wage hike of 100 pesos. And malls in Metro Manila will adjust their operating hours starting next week in anticipation of the heavy traffic during the holiday season. Let's begin our broadcast with soured loans held by big banks declining for a 7th straight month in September, bringing the non-performing loan ratio to a 25-month low. Data from the Bangko Sentral showed that the banking industry's non-performing loans dropped by 14.6% to 415.2 billion pesos in September on a year-on-year basis. This was also lower than the 418 billion peso figure seen in August. The September system-wide NPL ratio stood at 3.43%. This is the lowest since August 2020. Loans are deemed bad once a borrower has not paid for at least 90 days after the due date. These type of loans pose risks to asset quality of banks as borrowers are likely to default on their debts. Economists say the lower NPL is still mostly driven by the reopening of the economy. They say that with more businesses returning to pre-pandemic performance, fewer firms need to delay payments on their debts. Factory output grew at a slower pace in September amid the sustained high inflation. Preliminary data from the PSA shows that manufacturing output, as measured by the Volume of Production Index, posted an annual growth of 2.4% in September. That's lower than the 4.4% factory output growth recorded in August and way below the over 124% expansion in September last year. Speaking to the Philippine Star, RCBC Chief Economist Mike Ricafort attributed the slower growth in manufacturing output to higher inflation both locally and globally. He said higher interest rates that increased borrowing or financing costs for some manufacturers could have also affected the performance of the manufacturing sector.
Now, though the country's unemployment rate dropped to a new low since the start of the pandemic, job quality continued to worsen. That's according to the latest labor force survey by the Philippine Statistics Authority.
Now, the PSA also warned that elevated inflation may hurt job creation in the next few months. And with this, a labor group is now calling for a wage hike of 100 pesos. Shaila Francisco with the details.
The national labor force declined by close to 500,000 in September, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. Bulk of those who got out are individuals ages 15 to 24 and 25 to 34.
September kasi start na ng opening ng classes at yung ating citizens na they decided prior to join the labor force, available sila for job. Yung nakita namin na karamihan sa kanila ay bumalik sa eskwela. Yung sa September, schooling 41%. And then household duties, family duties 31% to help sa household work.
This explains why there was a decline among employed and unemployed Filipinos. Underemployment, meanwhile, continued to increase in September. The National Economic and Development Authority notes more individuals sought to earn additional income amid inflation. Paul, for one, is juggling two jobs, being a retailer in the morning and a security guard at night. He says his income as a security guard is not enough to pay bills and the tuition of his sibling.
Para hindi po kakapusin kahit sa pagkain lang. Malaking bagay po talaga. Nakakadagdag gastusin sa bahay. Pinapadala po sa kapatid ko sa probinsya, nag-aaral po.
Currently, the minimum wage is at 570 pesos after a hike of 33 pesos was approved last June. But data from the Bangko Sentral and the National Wages and Productivity Commission show that the real wage or the wage adjusted for inflation is at 500 pesos and 44 centavos. This means that around 70 pesos has been eroded considering the 6.9% inflation in September. But Labor Group Partido Manggagawa says that if we account for October inflation, the actual minimum wage value is much lower. That's why the group is appealing to increase wages by 100 pesos across the board.
Ang inflation, supervening event lahat ito, di ba? So hindi ito pwedeng magpahintay ng panibagong taon para pag-usapan ulit.
Danie, for its part, says subsidies will still be provided to help protect the purchasing power of Filipinos. Shaila Francisco, we are One News.
Are employers amenable to another wage hike increase to help workers cope with hot inflation? Let's get answers from Sergio Ortiz-Luis, President of the Employers Confederation of the Philippines and the Philippine Exports Confederation. Sir Serge, good day. Thank you for joining us again. An improvement, once again, unemployment numbers easing, but again, underemployment. How worrying is that, and what do you make of those numbers?
Well, actually, the reason is there's a lot of entrants in the labor market, but many of them are taking part-time jobs, and some companies are also rotating people, so the earnings really are going down. You know, the measure of those who are employed, if you work one day, you're already counted as employed. So that can really make the difference in the data.
Okay, sir, what's the trend going to be as we battle with highest inflation that we've seen in 14 years? What is this a temporary issue that once inflation goes down, there might be better opportunities for work, especially as employers start getting back the labor force, or is it going to be more difficult next year to find good jobs?
You probably have to look at the sizes of the firms, no? Our enterprises, 90% are micro, a little more than 8% is small, medium is 1%, and large is less than 1%. No? So from that you can, and in the micro, they employ about 65% of the employees, no, in the formal sector. So you can see that if you will really notice, the big companies, the medium companies are declaring better profits now, in spite of the conditions. No?
Okay.
But the small ones, especially the micro, who half of which closed down during the pandemic, beginning to open up, are having a difficulty adjusting because the inflation, especially transportation, takes a big portion of their company budget. No? So, but the large one, they can give much more than what is being asked for. No? So you will notice that the ones really suffering are the small ones. The others can fend for themselves. And that's why we are saying, if there is any assistance from the government, it should be concentrated on the small ones.
Okay. Sir Pet, is there no shift going on? Kasi you mentioned po that the big companies are growing naman. When you look at the profits, hindi po ba na-absorb yung losses in the small and micro companies that have been lost? And are they not going to these bigger firms?
Well, to a certain degree, most of the small ones are in this supply chain, are suppliers of big companies, no? And they can, in a way, pay them better. They can, in a way, improve their volume of their orders from them, no? Unfortunately, you have to face the reality that employment is really concentrated on the small ones, and they're the ones who are suffering, and that is why even this call of remember there are about 50 million more in our labor market, no, and about 10% of that is the only ones covered by the minimum wage law. Minimum wage are minimum wage earners, no? 16% of the 50 million is those who are covered by the labor laws, pag-ibig, SSS, and things like that. The other 90% do not technically have employers. So if there are increases in wages, only the 10% is affected.
And speaking of increases in wages, you now have some labor groups calling for a 100 peso hike in minimum wage. I mean, are you amenable to that? At what level are you going to be comfortable with, especially coming into next year? You know, we have already made increases this year. So what's the private sector standpoint when it comes to that?
Well, actually, as I was saying, there are some realities that we have to face now. If they increase the minimum wage, only 10% are affected. No? They are the beneficiaries. The 90%, who are the 90%? Who are the 90%? These are the mostly informal sector. Tricycle drivers, jeepney drivers, market vendors, small business employees, agriculture workers. 84% sila ng labor force. They don't have employers. So if they increase 100%, where will the tricycle driver get that 100 pesos? So nobody's going to give that to him. Unfortunately, companies who are mandated to increase salaries can only do two things. If they can afford it, they will just pass it on to their market. No? If not, they will try to cut down on their employment or make them rotation. That is creating a lot of part-time workers. No? So the problem is if your increase in expenses has nothing to do with your sales or income, you increase your prices and it escalates. Everybody has to pay that price, even the 90% who did not get any increase. And that is why it is very dangerous also to keep addressing the better situated, which is the minimum wage earners, who are mostly really in the regular jobs. The other 90%, yun ay kayang walang huhugutan.
Oo nga. Sir, just to ask on that
that's the
point,
problem.
sir, do you have data or figures on the number of regular workers that are now contractual? Or is this a situation that we are facing right now na dati po silang regular because we see high underemployment, no, even as unemployment is going down? What is the situation?
There are
with that?
data, I just don't have it right now, no. But Dole comes up with all this data. The contractuals have gone down, no.
Gone down, okay.
And mostly, the companies who are rehiring sometimes are hiring not everybody yet, no. And that is why the new entrants in the labor market, the new graduates, those who come at age, that's about 800,000 to 1 million a year, no? And that is why they're having difficulty being employed. So what happens is, sila yung nagpa-part-time, and that's why the statistics is like that.
Okay, even as contractual is actually going down. Go ahead, Jess.
Pero at the same time, very staggering numbers, 90% informal workers, like what you mentioned, they really won't be reaping the benefits of a possible wage hike here. How then should we be actually supporting this 90%? Kasi medyo malaki yun, sir.
Well, unfortunately, the informal sector are not they don't have the voice as strong as those who are in the formal sector because nandun yung mga trade unions to support them. Itong mga ito, there is splattered and they don't know. It's really the government who has to take the initiative to be able to support. Sila yung mostly dapat inaayudahan. Sila yung dapat sinusuportahan. And I think there's a budget for that. And I think the thing that the government must do, and what it is really doing, is trying to encourage investment because at the end of the day, it's job creation that is the problem so that we can create the jobs for them.
All right. Now let's shift the conversation. You are also the president of the Employers Confederation. We did see a growth here for the month of September. What brought about that bounce back here for the sector? Is the weakening of the peso a factor here?
Well, it's a factor, but it's only to keep us competitive. It's not such a big factor, because it only the dollar, our peso, our currency, is just going there are currencies that are depreciating much more than us, like Thailand, Korea, Japan. We are just following their tail, because if we don't, we will not be competitive. Now, the statistics, the September grew by 7%, I think. Because if you will remember, last year, we were in August last year, we declared heightened alert system, no? Because of the pandemic. So, bumaba yung data ng last year ng ano. So, if you say nag-increase ng 7% this year on a month-to-month comparison, it is because mababa yung
Base.
pinanggalingan, the base. So, but nevertheless, the growth of export and also the economy is slow but sure. We are going slowly but surely.
Okay, sir, can you give us what targets we are expecting here for the export sector? Is it low, single digits, especially given the global situation po?
Before the pandemic, our target for 2022 is $120 billion export.
Okay.
But that all went So now we are rehearsing the real target. Last year, we made actually about $87 billion. We are hoping that this year, we will at least reach $100 billion of both manufactured and services export.
Okay,
All right.
so looking forward to that data, of course, by the end of the year. Thank you so much, Sergio Ortiz-Luis, President of ECOP and PhilExport.
Thank you very much also.
Now let's pause for a quick break, but coming right up after that. The House of Representatives approves the bill seeking to impose tax on foreign digital services on second reading.
More of that and other stories when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
You're still watching Business World Live here on One News. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danie, Laurel.
Japan will lend the Philippines 377 billion yen or roughly 150 billion pesos for the North-South Commuter Railway. The railway, which is a 147-kilometer line stretching from Clark in central Luzon to Calamba in Laguna, is expected to be completed by March 2029. The project is co-financed by the Japan International Cooperation Agency and the Asian Development Bank. The Japanese government also expressed its intention to render support for the Philippines' bid to become an upper-middle income country and for its infrastructure program via official development assistance and public-private partnership projects. The Transportation Department says the loan is a, quote, very positive indication of Japan's continuing support for the Philippines.
Malls in Metro Manila are set to adjust their operating hours in anticipation of the traffic volume for the holiday season. According to the MMDA, malls will open their doors at 11 a.m. and close at 11 p.m. starting November 14th. This adjustment, which will be effective until January 6, aims to alleviate traffic during rush hour. The MMDA also says malls must limit mall-wide sales to the weekends. Operators must also notify the MMDA of mall-wide sales 2 weeks before the target date so the agency can make the necessary preparations.
Malaking tulong po yan kasi unang-una sa public transport, yung mga empleyado po ng mga malls, imbis na nakikipagsiksikan sila during rush hour, ma-adjust po yung oras ng biyahe nila. Ganon din po yung mga mamimili, mga other na yung mga ibang tao na pupunta sa malls, may dala sasakyan, ma-adjust din po. So, malaki rin po yung nababawas nito.
A measure that seeks to impose taxes on foreign digital services has hurdled second reading at the lower house. House Ways and Means Committee Chairperson Joey Salceda says around 19 billion pesos in revenues can be raised from the bill, which will slap a 12% value-added tax on non-resident digital service providers such as Netflix and Spotify. If signed into law, the 12% VAT will be imposed on the digital sale of services, including video-on-demand subscriptions, online advertisements, and online marketplaces, among others. The lower house also approved on second reading a bill that seeks to remove the tax exemption on pickup trucks and another one that imposes an excise tax of 100 pesos for the sale of every kilogram of single-use plastic bags. Salcedo says all three measures are expected to yield around 47 billion pesos annually.
The Globe said it has teamed up with Dito Telecommunity and 3 foreign telco firms for a subsea cable project. According to Globe, they will be working with China Telecom, Singapore Telecommunications, and Unified National Networks of Brunei for the $300 million project. The Asia Link cable project is expected to boost data capacity in the region. The 6,000-kilometer project will connect Hong Kong and Singapore as its trunk with branches into the Philippines, Brunei, and China. Construction of the submarine cable link is expected to be completed by 2025.
How many of the world's richest are liquid enough to spend $100 million for a painting? That's what we're about to find out as Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen holds what is said to be the most expensive art auction in history. James Starmy gives us more details in this Bloomberg Quick Take.
Christie's Auction House is about to put on a $1 billion sale of work from the collection from Paul Allen, the late co-founder of Microsoft. If the entire collection sells, the estimate is between $1 billion and $1.4 billion for a single night. Some of the most expensive artworks in history are supposed to hit the auction block and sell for record sums. And by record sums, I mean truly insane amounts. We're talking $120 million for a work by Cezanne, $100 million for a Seurat, $75 million for work by Lucian Freud, but it comes at a time of deep uncertainty in the art market and in the global financial markets. UC Pulkinen, who's the global president of Christie's, says the art market can sort of be counterintuitive. Whether or not these works hold their value is still up in the air. The real question is who actually has the liquidity and who has the desire to bid on these works. Some people are saying that there are a maximum of 300 bidders in the world who can actually spend $120 million on a painting. This auction is being seen by many as a bellwether, not simply for how the art market is going to fare in the coming weeks and months and years, but also about the behaviors of high net worth individuals more broadly.
To be able
My
to
budget
buy
is kind
such
of
expensive
lower.
pieces of art in this economy, ano?
Yeah, but nevertheless, art is always a beautiful thing to be looking at if you can't afford it, Jess.
Yun na lang tingnan mo, no? Rather than the high prices.
Visit na lang ng gallery.
Those are the biggest stories on the economic and corporate front today. I'm Jess Delos Santos.
And I'm Danie Laurel. We are One News, all sides, all the time. But don't go away. We'll give you the latest on the local bourse when Business World Live returns. Stay with us.
And you're still watching Business World Live here on One News. Dan, a deluge of earnings yesterday, but quite some positive sentiment as well. Give us a summary of that, and let's start with those consumption stocks.
All right, so this was quite a good sign. I mean, take a look at Pure Gold, 5.5% up, diba? And this follows also another consumption stock, URC, which, is kind of baffling to some people that we've had on the show, saying that, even with inflation at its 7.7%, you can still see, the third quarter earnings at least reflecting quite strong consumption there. Again, Pure Gold up 30% year on year in the third quarter. 9 month is 6.5 billion pesos. That's up 13%. And they said that the traffic rose 12%. It even opened 15 stores. Another consumption stock, Petron. Diba? I mean, with the oil prices, they still did pretty well. That's up 64% now for the 9 month net income to 8.2 billion pesos. Ramon Ang, CEO, is saying that despite the uncertainties of the geopolitical issues on the oil, they are still on track in terms of recovery. In the Philippines, sales volume dropped 30%. So marami pa rin gumagamit ng gasolina, Jess. And yeah, let's take a quick peek at the property developers as well. You've got Ayala Land down 0.2%, but this comes after they already announced yesterday their net income for the 9 months up by 55%. They said that even residential reservation sales rose 10% year on year in the 9 months, that residential demand remained resilient despite economic conditions. And finally, just quick peek on DMCI, another one that saw an 84% increase in third quarter core net income to 7.4 billion pesos. But of course, they did mention that that's primarily also with the coal prices, of course, jumping higher, and Semirara contributing to that. And to end our broadcast, how is our market doing today? After quite a hefty jump to 6,300 levels, a bit of, paring back here, probably some profit taking after the surge yesterday, trading at 6260.36. Yes.
And that's it for today, November 9, 2022. Join us again tomorrow at exactly 9:30 a.m. You can also catch us on Signal Play. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Jess De Los Santos.
And I'm Danie Laurel. Stay safe, Philippines. We are One News, all sides, all the time.